To the reviewers, listeners, lovers, supporters out there, they say people once believed that when someone dies, the crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. But sometimes something so bad happens that a terrible sadness is carried with it and the soul can't rest. Then sometimes, just sometimes, only sometimes, I promise y'all, the crow can bring that soul back to put the wrong things right. And with that being said, with this beautiful song playing in the background for this review, this spoiler filled review that I've brought to y'all finally, let me cut this shit off. And let me ask the question: does The Crow 2024 put the wrong things right, people? I'm here to give y'all the answers. I'm here to give y'all all of the answers, the unfiltered, unpopular opinions on The Crow 2024. Now, granted, I've been in, since I've seen this shit, like, I swear, I've been in Crow mode, man. I've watched the original. Y'all know I did, I don't remember if it was Intoxic commentary or not for the first one, but I know for sure I did commentary for the first movie. I just recently, uh, I'm grateful that I decided to do Intoxic commentary. I mean, whether it was Intoxic commentary or not, I'm glad I went back and fully watched, the Crow City of Angels. But Tubi, a couple days later, had the Crow Salvation, the third movie, on there, and I'm like, damn, all this shit's falling into place. Wicked Prayer is always going to stand where it stands with me because I've tried to do an Intoxic commentary with that. That was an Intoxic commentary I tried to do, people. And it just bored me to death. Like, not even the liquor helped, and I was just like, fuck this movie at this point. I don't care. I stand 10 toes down on that. I'll get to that in a second, but as of recently, I've definitely been in Crow mode, man. Like, just as far as the reboot, going back to the original, going back to the sequels. I even watched The Crow Stairway to Heaven on YouTube, man. The first season, I think the only season of The Crow Stairway to Heaven is on YouTube, man. Starring Mark Dacascos and some other familiar faces y'all might recognize, man. But, this one right here, man, I was really gearing myself up towards, and I told myself I was going to be fair about it. This was prior to the trailer reaction, people. This was prior to the news of Bill Skarsgård being cast. This was prior to the director Rupert Sanders being, hired to not write the script, but, hired to direct the film. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been on board, man. I've been along for the ride that we call this gauntlet, man. And I don't know, man. I just feel like this movie has gone through so much turmoil and tragedy and triumph. Not necessarily triumph, because let's just call a spade right now, people. This movie was a box office bomb that we're about to get into. But does that always mean that it's a bad film? In our eyes, in our own unique eyes, in my own unique eyes? Absolutely not, man. I love, even, a lot of people be online calling me, oh, you're an edgelord, and you like shock value, you are shock. Like, nah, I'm not that guy. It just so happens that I love what some people hate, man. Is that one of those cases right here? We'll get to that in a second, man. But I just feel like we should do a little bit of backtracking and a little bit of research, before we get into this movie. Now, the original Crow movie, I feel like I don't need to, I did this with the trailer reaction, man. I did this years ago when I started the podcast, and I was like, oh, The Crow, is it a cursed set? And this, that, and the other. Now, The Crow, now I'm looking it up now for sure. Just, just so I don't, spread any misinformation. The original, 1994, Alex Proyas, man, Brandon Lee, the late great Brandon Lee, rest in peace, shout out to him, man. I just recently watched this, and Brandon Lee, Ernie Hudson, Michael Wincott, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of these actors that were involved in the making of this movie, the creators, the writers, the producers, the director, Alex Proyas, and shout out to James O'Barr for being the the source of the source material, man. And shout out to David J. Scow, whose name is also going to pop up in here along with Alex Proyas at some point in this spoiler filled review. But I feel like the original, even back in the day, man, before I could even fathom how crazy Brandon Lee's death on set was for the fans, and just for the film, and the fact that they finished this movie. This was pre, Paul Walker, we got to finish Furious 7. This was pre, Philip Seymour Hoffman, we got to finish this movie. This was pre, oh, the mom from The Sopranos died, we got to finish this series. This was long. Peter Cushing, I think Peter Cushing was the actor that played Grand Moff Tarkin, and they didn't have to finish a film without him per se when he passed away, but they brought him back. I want to say was it Star Wars Rogue One? I'm not so sure which Star Wars movie it was. Don't quote me on that, man. I don't want the Star Wars community coming after me for that. But this was pre super crazy expensive, well thought out technology that could bring these actors back to life on screen. Now, there are some moments in the original Crow movie where they did bring Brandon Lee back on screen, and they probably kept kept the stunt actor in the shadows, so you didn't see his face and identify the fact that it was a stunt double, a stand-in. Or they probably did like a CG fill-in on the actor's face. Now, there's that moment where he goes to the window when the crow is on his shoulder and the lightning flashes when he first puts the makeup on. That is like a digitally composited shot that they did of Brandon Lee in that first movie, man. So they definitely spent some money on like special effects, but it wasn't like how it was today, man. So it was a pretty big deal, the fact that he died on the set of this movie, man, and they had to finish this film like with their titular character, or without their titular character rather. So the original Crow movie, it is what it is, man. Excuse me. It stands the test of time, and I will always appreciate that movie. I will always love that movie. Now, as of recently, I think last week at some point, I did an Intoxic commentary for The Crow City of Angels. Couldn't wait to get to it. That movie came out a couple years later in 1996, and Tim Pope was the director of that film. And I got to tell y'all, man, if y'all don't take my word for it right now, please check out the Intox commentary on the Tudor Reviews podcast, man, for The Crow City of Angels, man. I really enjoyed that movie way more than I knew it was going to be underrated, and I knew I was going to like geek out over it, but I had no idea that I was going to appreciate the smaller things that I had learned to appreciate about that movie, man. And it was so good of an experience. And the fact that Vincent Perez didn't try to replicate what Brandon Lee did, I think that's one of the biggest compliments you can really give to Crow City of Angels, man, because you got a bunch of remakes and reboots that people give credit to all the time where the motherfuckers try to recreate the original characters verbatim. You know what I'm saying? Like bar for bar, word for word. And the fact that Vincent Perez didn't try to be Brandon Lee's version of Eric Draven, a lot of people don't give credit to the movie. A lot of people don't give credit to the movie for looking the way that it does, for having villains that stand out the way that they do, for having shots and just overall direction the way that it does, man. I think The Crow City of Angels was the last of the Mohicans as far as the good Crow spin-offs, reboots, requels, remakes, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And then, we kind of got into dark territory, and I almost pressed the button on y'all, but we got into dark territory smack dead in the year 2000 with The Crow Salvation. Now, mind y'all, Rob Zombie was supposed to direct The Crow. It was like 2037 or some shit like that. The script, or some pages of the script at least, are floating around online somewhere. And there's interviews where he was talking about how Dimension Films, the Weinsteins were trying to cash in on every single fucking thing that was popping. And at the box office at the time, they wanted to get, Scream was popping. They wanted to get fucking Skeet Ulrich to play Billy Loomis from the Scream franchise. They wanted to get him to play the Crow. Starship Troopers was popping at the time, and it was like, how do we incorporate big giant bugs and spiders into it? It's like, what the there's a reason Harvey Weinstein is in the predicament he's in. Now, I don't know about Bob. I'm gonna give Bob the benefit of the doubt, but the Weinsteins, prime example, when Rob Zombie was trying to do his version with his original finished script, prime example of studio involvement. But we ended up getting fucking The Crow Salvation. I just watched it on Tubi a couple days ago, and it does not hold up well. I think I gave this movie, like before the new movie came out, I gave this movie way more credit than it deserved, man. The cast is still decent. Kirsten Dunst, Eric Mabius plays Alex Corvus, the Crow, the Gregster from fucking Cruel Intentions, and I'm like what, y'all got the Gregster from from Cruel Intentions. I was about to say from the Crow, Cruel Intentions. That's a whole nother spinoff that we got going on. But y'all got Eric Mabius to play the Crow, and don't get me wrong, his coat is badass. His look is cool because Alex Corvus, in this case, he's framed for a murder that he didn't commit by a bunch of crooked cops, and he gets the electric chair. So when he gets his way out of cold storage in the morgue, he peels his face off, but the scars on his face form like the makeup of the Crow. They are scars literally forming the makeup of the Crow, and I'm like, that's cool. Like, the idea of the design is really cool, man. But Eric Mabius, he's nowhere near as strong as an actor as Vincent Perez or Eric Draven. Jesus Christ, man. That's how much of an impact that original movie has, man. He's no longer Brandon Lee. That motherfucker is Eric Draven, recipe shout out. But he's nowhere near as strong an actor as Vincent Perez and Brandon Lee. But he tries to do his own spooky boogeyman thing in there. He's got a good scene with Dale Midkiff, the original dad from Pet Sematary, is in that movie. William Atherton is in there. Kirsten Dunst. Jodie Leno Kev. Walt Goggins is in that movie. Don Shanks is in that movie. Fred Ward is in that movie, man. But after watching The Crow Salvation as of recently, like a couple days ago, it's not all that good. It's really boring. The movie has no personality, no identity to it at all, man. So it's just really just a dry spell as far as the rest of the series is concerned, man. And it really, a lot of people like to hate on City of Angels, but I feel like Salvation set the tone for where we were going with the rest of this shit. And as far as the rest of the movies, we had The Crow Wicked Prayer after that, man, and god damn, I love Edward Furlong, Terminator 2, Pet Sematary 2, I mean, American History X, he's a piece of shit, but, I feel like deep down he wanted to redeem himself, but he really couldn't. He was a piece of shit, but doesn't matter, man. The Crow Wicked Prayer is one of the worst movies of all time. You got Edward Furlong, David Boreanaz, Tara Reid, Emmanuel Shrieky, Dennis Hopper, Danny Trejo, fucking Macy Gray pops up at some point, and I'm just like, all right, man, y'all are going all out. Y'all going for broke. Y'all put Sharpie marker on this motherfucker's face, and y'all wanted us to accept it as a Crow movie. I can't do that. It's awful. It's terrible. And shout out to Mark Dacascos for being in, one complete season of The Crow Stairway to Heaven. I said this before. Actually recently, I feel like Mark Dacascos got cheated out of an entire feature-length film, because I went back and watched that original series, at least a couple episodes, maybe like 3 or 4 episodes of The Crow Stairway to Heaven. It's on YouTube if anybody wants to check it out, the first season. But I told myself that while I appreciate the fact that we got Eric Draven's character fleshed out, he had more people to interact with, he had more shit to do, he had more badass moments, he had more dialogue and this and that, and more this and more that. I feel like Mark Dacascos deserved a film. You gave fucking Eric Mabius and Edward Furlong a Crow movie before you gave Mark Dacascos, and Mark Dacascos was the only, as far as charisma, and we're not talking about Vincent Perez here, we're going to separate him because he was in a class all his own, but as far as playing a rebooted version of Eric Draven, a charismatic character, Mark Dacascos had it down, man. He brought some character to that role, and nobody appreciated it in the form of a short-lived TV series. So we didn't really get enough of that shit, man. But we had a lot of time to get this together, man. And y'all know, man, if y'all been following the show for the last 4 years and some change, y'all know that I've been along for the ride also. I've been there in this gauntlet with y'all. All of the Crow fans that have been curious about what they're going to do. I'm not talking about the haters, man. I'm talking about the ones that have stuck by this shit. I'm not going to compare it to an abusive relationship, but I'm just going to compare it to, it's almost like acrimony. minus the fact that the partner was cheating. It's like, yo, man, I promise I'm gonna get it together and we gonna make this happen. That's the Crow franchise, man, because we had Bradley Cooper signed on at one point, we had Luke Evans signed on at one point, we had fucking Jason Momoa signed on at one point, almost to the point where we almost got the movie. Corinne Hardy was going to direct, and we saw test footage long after the project had failed. We were down for this shit, man. I'm speaking for the people that were down for this remake. You know what I'm saying? And we finally got it. You know, we got this director, Rupert Sanders. Now, let me see what Rupert Sanders has directed before. Snow White and the Huntsman. I've never seen it. You know, I've never seen that movie before. I didn't really. It's not that I didn't care what he directed before, but it's like I've never seen his work before, so I can't really judge it. Snow White and the Huntsman. Ghost in the Shell, which got a lot of flack, so clearly he's known for controversy, man. I know Ghost in the Shell was known for, they said that they whitewashed the film and they cast not Charlize Theron, Jesus Christ, let me stop spreading misinformation even further. They said that they cast Scarlett Johansson in the role, and a lot of people were just like, what, that's not the fucking source material. I've never seen it, so I can't really speak on that shit and you know, share the sentiment with y'all. But I know that Rupert Sanders was the guy that was sent to direct this movie. And once they said that Bill Skarsgård was going to be the Crow, I automatically thought of when he played Pennywise in It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, the remakes from Andy Muschietti. And I was like, this is a guy who has become, for me personally, more and more interesting to watch on screen. So I want to see what he'll do with the character of Eric Draven. I'm all good with that. And you know, they dropped some photos of what he was going to look like as the Crow. Finally, there was like fan art online, and I was like, oh shit, the long hair and the Crow sitting on his shoulder with the shotgun. I said, oh, that, like, I'm with that look right there. But then we got the look, and everybody was split screening the look next to Jared Leto's Joker in Suicide Squad. You know, basically Cholo, you know, fucked up haircut, you know, tattoos all over the face, all over the body. What are you doing with your life type of shit? And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of on the fence about it, but I was like, look, I've waited this long. I don't want to bitch and moan and complain the entire time when I've been waiting for this. I want to give it a chance. Like, yeah, I'm going to critique it for sure. That's what I'm on the verge of being, is a professional movie critic. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to have my critiques and my and shit like that. However, you know, the trailer dropped and I did my trailer reaction for y'all and things of that nature. There weren't many TV spots. There wasn't really good promotion for this film. Much like the Hellboy movie, the promotion for this movie was pretty bad overall. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, man, it was pretty bad. But you would think that for a movie like, you know, a movie of this caliber, a property of this caliber, you would think that the promotion would be a lot higher. But I feel like they were kind of playing it safe and playing it scared also. This is just my opinion. Playing it scared also because of how beloved that original film is and how beloved Brandon Lee is and the character of Eric Draven that he created on screen, man. That first movie is legend to a lot of people. I believe it's legend myself. I love that film, man. I remember, you know, there were times where we didn't have, you know, crazy cable in the crib, and I remember that shit was playing on pay-per-view. I would watch The Crow through the squiggly lines until our cable came back, you know, until the bill was paid type of shit. Yeah, that's how much I love this movie, man. I couldn't wait to get it on VHS. I couldn't wait to own it on DVD years later. I couldn't wait to see it on TV any chance I got to possibly record it or DVR it, whatever the case may be. I love that film, but the fact that I waited so long for this shit to come out, I had to be fair, man, even through my criticisms with the trailer. And with that being said, let me, you know, before we get into the goods and the bads about the movie, because I don't want to take up too much of y'all time with this episode. This is going to be a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen you know, if you haven't seen the movie, just get the fuck out of here now, man. Go on TikTok for the you know, TikTok, YouTube, not YouTube, but Facebook or Instagram for the non-spoiler review that I actually put up on TikTok, the green screen shit. But let me just say this before I jump into the likes and dislikes of this movie, man. I did see, you know, earlier today, and actually over the course of the last couple days, Director of the original Crow movie and co-writer of the original Crow movie. Alex Proyas, who was the director, and the co-writer, David J. Scow. Great guys, man. I love what Alex Proyas created as far as that first movie. I love how near and dear he keeps that movie to his heart. David J. Scow, not only was he a part of the fucking Crow movie, but he also had a hand in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. One of the greatest Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies of all time, most underrated, most badass. You gave me Ken Foray from Dawn of the Dead versus Leatherface. Like, you don't get no better than that as a writer, sir. I appreciate you both. However, I think it's bullshit. The shade and the hate that Alex Proyas and David J. Scow are giving this remake. Yes, the remake flopped. Surprise, surprise at the fucking box office, people. It flopped. It's getting terrible Rotten Tomatoes scores. I don't know who the fuck in their right mind as a grown adult, as somebody who's aspiring to be a critic of their own with their own mind. I don't know, and this is just my personal opinion. I don't know who bases their opinion off of Rotten Tomato scores and off of other people's reviews and this he say and she say, but they said, yeah, Rotten Tomato scores gives this a low score and it made this much money. Yeah, it was a box office bomb. The shit flopped for sure. But there's a lot of movies that flop that are fucking amazing. I'm not saying this movie's amazing by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm saying that the hate that this movie's been getting is fucking absurd, man. Like, and I don't even use that word a lot on the show, man. I promise y'all. And with all the complaints that I had with this movie, I still feel like people are just being complete sheep and running with the flock. Like, this movie, I said the same fucking thing when I did commentary for the Crow City of Angels, man. And this was not the liquor talking. I promise y'all, when I did that commentary. That movie, much like this reboot, remake, whatever the hell you want to call it, didn't stand a chance. Because the first movie just cast such a big shadow. Like, you gotta look at all the movies that are just so, like, just held in a glass case. Do not break in case of an emergency. And if it is an emergency, don't even break it anyway, because we don't even want you to touch this shit to tarnish its reputation. That is the type of shit that these fans of the Crow, the original Crow, are on. And the fact that, alright, the fans and the critics are one thing, but the fact that, Alex Proyas, the director of the first movie, David J. Scow, the co-writer of the first movie, the fact that y'all are shitting on this movie while it's going through a tough time at the box office, I feel like that's real lame to me. Like, I'm just saying, man, like, I feel like that's real lame to me, and I feel like y'all should be looking at it like all the other directors look at it. Like, imitation is the highest form of flattery. I think that phrase is used. I probably said it all wrong. Y'all know I fuck things up all the time, but I'm just saying, y'all should be like, oh wow, they want to remake the movie? That's cool, man. Do your own thing with the movie. It kind of comes off as like kind of John Carpenter-ish when Rob Zombie did Halloween 2, and Rob Zombie said that John Carpenter was like, hey man, make it your movie, go ahead and do your thing, because Rob Zombie called him up for approval, like, yo man, I'm about to remake your movie, I need your blessing, type of thing. Like, that is, I'm not saying that's what Rupert Sanders did with this movie, but all I'm saying is y'all are whack as fuck for that. I feel like y'all are really lame for that. Now, granted, like, don't get me wrong, if somebody remade my classic that I made like literally 30 years ago, yeah, I would feel some type of way, because why would you want to do something over that I felt was a masterpiece for me? If I felt like that was my swan song in my first song, yeah, don't do it over, but let me see what you do. And if you don't do it as good as I did it, yeah, I'll let you know, but I'll give you credit where the credit is due. They're not doing any of that. And I feel like the movie deserves credit where the credit is due, man. I just think it's so fucking trash how they're just shitting on the movie and making fun of how it's a box office bomb. Because I promise y'all, I don't feel like Alex Proyas and David J. Scow did that shit when City of Angels dropped, unless I look it up. Did y'all do that when the Crow Salvation dropped? Did y'all do that when the Crow Wicked Prayer dropped? Did y'all do that when the Crow Stairway to Heaven TV series dropped? or the fan films for that matter. There's a really great fan film from Justin Main and the crew from out in Detroit out there. Shout out to them, man. They did a really great, probably the best Crow fan film I've seen. Did you hate on them for that? Nah, man, you pick and choose your battles poorly. That's how I feel about that. That's all I wanted to say about that. As far as the movie, is this movie amazing? Absolutely not. Does this movie take liberties where need be? Yes, it does. Absolutely. And I feel like this movie does, even through how bland it can be at times, it does separate itself from that first movie. Are there scenes recreated from the first movie? Yeah. Even like the opera house sequence, you can blatantly compare that to when Eric Draven goes to kill Skank, at Top Dollar's head honcho meeting, and he grabs that sword out of the case, and he starts slaying everybody up in that motherfucker, man. He's shooting people, he's slaying people with the sword. It's the same sequence, but I feel like they did it in this one with more of a John Wick-esque type of choreography. And one of the things that concerned me about that sequence right there, I didn't want it to feel too choreographed. I didn't want Eric Draven to know everything he was doing. I didn't want his every move to be like, oh, this motherfucker used to know Jeet Kune Do, or he used to know Taekwondo, or he used to know Do. Whatever type of fucking Do martial arts it was, I was like, all right, I don't want him to know that. But it felt like, for lack of a better word, it did feel sloppy in the sense where Eric Draven is making this up as he goes. Like, he literally is like, all right, I'm going to stab this guy in the mouth. I'm going to take this sword out. I'm going to slice his homie in the shoulder, like down his shoulder, Friday 13th Part 2 ending style. And then I'm going to leave him wounded. I'm going to get to his homie and cut his fucking head, off. Terrence and Phillip Doll style. I'm gonna put this sword through his mouth and press it up against the wall, and his shit just gonna fall off. Like that opera house sequence, the best sequence in the entire film for me. I think that is the best strong point for the entire movie, man. Listen, people, I'm going off my notes here. I don't even give a fuck about the notes anymore because I just feel so opinionated and so driven about this movie, man. There's a lot of people that didn't like this movie, but I love the fact that I didn't watch anybody's reviews prior to seeing this movie for myself. It wasn't until after I saw it and did my own spoiler-free review. Yeah, I started to watch people's reviews, but even then, like a lot of the reviews I was watching of the people that I actually admire, podcast-wise, the audio or YouTube-wise, like I didn't share their opinions at all about the movie. There was some maybe here and there, but for the most part, the ones that I watch regularly, like regular TV shows, I was like, damn, man, we are not in agreement about this film, man. Now, like I said, is it amazing? No, it's not. But this movie definitely has a lot of strengths to it, man. I think as far as the performances go, Bill Skarsgård is the best actor in this entire movie. And I know there's a lot of people out there that, a lot of OGs that are going to be like, what about Danny Houston? Danny Houston, I was not a fan of him being in this film. Danny Houston, the moment they said that he was going to be the villain, the main fucking villain of this movie, Vincent Rogue is his name. Is it Roeg or Rogue or Rudes? No, it's Vincent Rogue, I believe. But the moment they said he was going to be the villain in this movie, I'm like, damn, like, could we not have gone with the female, the gender swap Top Dollar like they originally planned to? But Danny Houston, I'm like, fuck, man, like we saw, he's the ultimate villain in 30 Days a Night. You know what I'm saying? He was the villain in X-Men Origins Wolverine. God damn, he was Stryker in that movie. He was the villain, and he was one of the villains, along with Virginia Madsen, in my opinion, in the number 23 with Jim Carrey, one of Joel Schumacher's best fucking films, by the way. He was the villain. He was one of the villains in Wonder Woman, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm like, I'm tired of seeing this guy typecast. We could do better. We could do a lot better than this guy, man. And as I said, I'm gonna say a lot of shit I'm going to repeat a lot of shit that I said in my TikTok, green screen review, man. And I'm like, the only thing that was missing from Danny Houston was a mustache to twirl because you are a weak villain, my boy. You're trash. You're garbage, man. You do a lot of talking. You don't do a lot of heavy lifting. And Danny Houston's got this supernatural aspect where he can whisper in somebody's ear like he's talking all types of mumbo jumbo. Motherfuckers' eyes turn white, and it turns into a situation from M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening where they either stab themselves, they stab somebody else, or he can do something else, which I'll get to in a minute when we talk about the climax of the film, man, or the third act of the film overall. But Danny Houston was a weak-ass villain. Speaking of villains, the rest of the villains are trash. None of them are memorable. And I know in my video review, I said, yo, y'all can't compare this to the original, man. This is his own thing. You got to go into it not idolizing that original film. It's impossible. I'm full of shit, people. You have to compare it to the original because at the end of the day, it is a reboot, a loose reboot, loose remake, whatever the fuck you want to call it. There's scenes directly recreated from that first film. So yeah, it's its own recreation of that first movie. So yeah, there's going to be comparisons, man. I don't care how much I try to mask it. But like the villains in the first movie, Tintin, T-Bird, Funboy, Skank, they're all memorable. They all look memorable, they all sound memorable, they all have memorable lines and sequences throughout the course of that movie long before Eric Draven even gets to get a chance to kill them off. These villains in this movie, man, they're disposable. The ones that they try to give, distinctive looks to, they're gone. Just like that. There's a moment where Eric Draven walks up to a car with a revolver that his homie gave him, the tattoo artist that gave him and Shelly the tats. His homie gives him a revolver. He's like, yo, dog, I need a burner. Like, I need a gun. You know what I'm saying? So he goes to the guy's car. The guy's got like a fucked up eye, and when Eric walks up to his car with the gun drawn, he's like, I fucking killed you. And Eric's like, yeah, you're right. Don't fucking move. And he goes into the back seat and he's like, yo, I need names. You know what I'm saying? I need names. And then he ends up shooting this guy because the guy tries to grab a gun and kill Eric, but Eric shoots the guy, and I love the fact that his ears pop when he shoots that guy, because this version of Eric Draven, the original version, Brandon Lee's version of Eric Draven, he pretty much knew off the rip that he could both regenerate, and he really couldn't be killed for the most part, because when he does that little mini flip on the window, he slides back in, he flips back into the apartment, into a loft apartment, and he sees that his hands have healed up where his hands grabbed the glass. And then he drops himself off the fucking rooftop when Tintin's in the alleyway, and then he just starts laughing. That's when he knows, not only can I heal, but I can't die, bitch, and you motherfuckers are in trouble for killing me and my girlfriend and terrorizing the rest of the city. But this version of Eric Draven, man, like, okay, let me just talk about Eric Draven and Shelley Webster in this movie. Again, I said this in my video review, my non-spoiler review, but let's get into some spoilers, man. They meet in like a detention center. I don't know if it's a rehab or a criminal detention center, whatever it is. I know these motherfuckers got like pink jumpsuits on or whatever the fucking case may be. But Eric and Shelley meet there. And they hit it off because they're rebellious and they're just emo and they just are, yo, fuck the world. We want to get shit done the way we want to get shit done. And that's cool and everything. And, they break out at the same time. And Eric is originally going to let Shelley break out. He's showing her the way out of there. But then he's just like, you know what? Fuck this, man. I'll jump out of here with you. And they hit it off. And they have sex. And they fall in love. And that's cool. That's cute and everything, man. The thing that they try to establish with Eric and Shelley in here is cute. And we do spend 30 to 35, maybe 40 minutes of the first act, of this movie with Eric and Shelley. We get the whole first portion of this film, for the most part, with Eric and Shelley. We didn't get that before. The movie started off with Eric and Shelley already murdered. Well, Eric was already murdered. Shelley was on her way out. She got beaten and raped so many times that she was on her way out the door, and she eventually died at the hospital. So this movie does something different that, like, I can appreciate the effort for sure. We are paying close attention to Eric Draven and Shelley Webster throughout the course of this movie, so we can be invested in their love life, so we can be invested in their hearts and their souls and their stories and their backstories, even, for that matter. But the problem with this movie is, and I said this before, I spent less time with Eric and Shelly in that first movie, and I cared a hell of a lot more. I don't give a fuck about what they got going on in this movie. Shelly tells Eric, she hints at the fact that, yo, I've done things. If I tell you what I've done in my past, like, we're both rebels, we're badasses. That's all cool until it was like, I think Gilly said this shit on it. Shout out to Gilly and Wallow, $1,000,000 worth of game. It was like, yo, everybody a real nigga till it's time to do real nigga shit. Because Shelly was, everybody's rebels and shit like that. And Shelly's just like, listen, if I tell you the shit that I've done in my past, you gonna leave me. And he's like, well, I would never leave you, baby. But then when that motherfucker finds out, he's just like, God damn, Shelly. Like, yo, what type of shit is you on, shorty? Shorty, Shelly, I don't know if I can stay type of business. But, it turns out that Shelly was kind of underfoot by the Danny Houston character, man, and he's got these supernatural powers that called for Shelly to kill people, man. She's murdered people. She's done things in her past that she didn't want to tell Eric about, and there are people, Danny Houston's folks are coming after her, man. So that's basically what ends up getting them caught up, man, and their death sequence is very fucking disturbing, is very sad, is very brutal, because they don't cut away from it. They put these plastic bags over Eric and Shelly's faces and they let it rock. They let the entire sequence rock, and you see them run out of air, you see them run out of life within their last breaths, literally staring into each other's eyes as they're being murdered. And to add insult to injury, the one guy that's got the bag over Shelly's head while she dies, the moment she takes her last breath and he knows she's dead, he checks her fucking pulse to make sure she's dead, and he kisses her on the cheek, and I'm like, God damn, yo, there are movies where even Death Sentence with Kevin Bacon, they shoot him, they shoot his wife, they shoot his remaining son, and they don't check no pulses. They just like, oh, we shot him in the spleen, all right, yeah, he dead, he gonna die from that. No, these motherfuckers check the pulses of these motherfuckers, and they're dead, they're done. This is when we get Eric Draven into this like purgatory type of situation. And we get this character named Kronos. Now I don't know if Kronos is from the comics or not, but Kronos is basically Captain Exposition. He's the guy that comes in with the same shit I came at y'all with in the beginning of the episode. He's like, did you guys know that if the crow, sets the wrong things right, then you can whoop somebody's ass and bleed black blood and not fucking feel a thing? Like, he's that guy. He's given all the exposition. But one of the things that I love, not necessarily about Kronos, but one of the things I love about Eric's interaction with Kronos throughout the movie, the moments that we do get with those two, is that Kronos, he will answer a question straight up. But I love the fact even more that Eric has questions. He's like, yo, man, something happened today. Can I die? I'm invincible. Can I feel pain? Like, can I walk through bullets? Can I do this? And the guy basically, he's got clarification, straightforward clarification for every question that Eric asks him. And, there is a moment where Eric doesn't want to be involved in this. And he's like, look, man, this is a bad dream. And Kronos is just like, well, wake up. And he pushes him into that fucking, pond of no return. And then Eric wakes up, but he feels every injury. He still feels the injuries and things like that. But then there's a moment where the tattoo artist, goddamn, what is that tattoo artist's name? His name is Chance. So he goes to Chance's crib, and there's that shootout that we do see in the trailer. It's a fight sequence, and it's a shootout in the trailer. And then he gets shot with the shotgun. He falls into the tub, and he goes back into purgatory. He's in and out of purgatory throughout some point in this movie, talking to Kronos back and forth. But the moment where he agrees to be the crow, where he's like, look, man, like, I'll do it, but I want to trade my life for hers. I'll do this crow shit, man. I'll become this superhero that y'all don't want me to become in this reboot because y'all love Brandon Lee type of shit. Like, he agrees to it, and that's when his eyes start bleeding black and the crow flies into his back and turns into black dust and things like that. So he comes back. Now, I don't know if he was already that Diesel in the movie, but it seems like when he comes back as the crow after he's agreed to the terms and conditions, it seems like Bill Skarsgård is a lot more Diesel, and he's able to do a lot more damage, man. And honestly, when he becomes the crow, when he's putting like the makeup on, there is a sequence in here, and rightfully so, where he's putting the makeup on. They play the music that I played in the beginning of this episode, people. They play that Enya song. I think it's called Bodicea. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but they play that. And I know in the first movie they had the song where they, the song that they played. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. Somebody out there, send it in and tell me what that song is called. But they had that song in that moment where Brandon Lee was putting on the Crow makeup and he became the Crow. Iconic fucking scene, great song, even though I don't remember what it was. Recently watching the Crow City of Angels, they had the same moment where Sarah had grabbed, some of the paintings or the ink from the tattoo shit and painted it on Ash's face. She rubbed like the white shit on his face, and then she gave him like the streaks on his eyes and on his mouth and on his lips and things like that. You have to have that moment in the Crow movie, whether it's a reboot or a sequel. But the fact that they played that Enya song, Sleepwalkers, for all my Snowfall fans, they played that at Uncle Jerome's funeral, the moment the funeral sequence started. That is an iconic tune, but I feel like, I don't care what anybody says, it fit really well in that sequence where he's putting that makeup on his face, man. And at that time, he's definitely ready to get busy. And he looked at the one of the goons' text messages at the time, and he sees that he has to meet somebody. The goon has to meet somebody at the opera house in like 2 hours or some shit like that. So he's got time to get ready, put his jacket on, get a sword. I love the shot of him just walking up to the opera house, taking that sword out the case and just dropping the case on the ground, not giving a fuck. He doesn't care, man. Listen, Bill Skarsgård gets his moment to shine, man. Like I said, the opera house sequence can be compared to the sequence where, Eric Draven in the original Crow movie goes to kill Skank and ends up killing all the top dollars goons one by one, whether it's a gun, whether it's a sword, whether it's his bare hands, whether he throws them out the goddamn window, doesn't matter. That opera house sequence is so well put together, man. And again, one of the biggest compliments I can give that sequence in this movie is the fact that everything felt realistic, man. All the damage that Eric Draven sustained in this movie, it felt real, and it looked cool, and it looked brutal, and it looked gritty. There's even a moment where he kills one of the goons in the car, and then he goes right for, Danny Houston's right-hand chick, while she's getting in the car with her folks. And he flies through the windshield of the car while he's shooting at it, and he's in there trying to shoot everybody in there and kill everybody in there. He ends up shooting the driver in the fucking cheek, but the bullet goes off so quickly that the driver, he almost is he's almost unfazed by the gunshot wound in his cheek, and he keeps driving. But Eric's trying to fight everybody in the car, but then they kick him out at some point, and he gets hit by a fucking truck. And this moment was one of the moments I cringed, man, because when he gets hit by that fucking truck, he's limping off. Nobody's stopping for him, by the way. Nobody gives a shit that this. Oh my God, are we going to stop for this pedestrian that just got hit? No, nobody cares. But at some point, he's walking, and you see a bone, spare rib tip, shit sticking out of his leg, and he snaps it back into place. Oh my God, listen, y'all know how I am about bones sticking out of place, man, dislocations and shit like that. I just dealt with that shit a couple months ago, man. So when that bone was sticking out of his leg, I said, oh my fucking goodness, that is disgusting. Chinese store called, they need spare rib tips back in stock. That was one of those moments, man. But the opera house sequence was kind of like that too, because he steps on somebody's head and breaks his fucking neck. Like I said earlier, he pushes that sword between in between somebody's mouth and cuts the top of their fucking head off from the bottom. It's really brutal, man. He leans towards somebody while he's impaled just to stab them in the eye and kill them, man. It's a really great sequence. The way that they incorporate the opera moments that are happening with the violence moments that are happening with Eric through that sequence, I thought it was really well done, man. It's really well directed. Some people could call it cliche, and while I thought that it was going to be on some cliche John Wick type of shit, nah, man, it feels a bit more realistic because it's less choreographed than something like John Wick, man. And this is coming from somebody who is fresh off of John Wick Chapter 4. I mean, I got to finish watching it. I was a little distracted watching it, but like, that's neither here nor there, man. The showdown with Danny Houston and Bill Skarsgård is very weak. That shit is garbage because, Bill Skarsgård goes into his room where there's 1,000 mirrors, and he's sitting in his robe by himself, and he puts the blade to his neck, and he's like, turn around and face me. He's like, you killed us, why'd you kill us? And Danny Houston is just like, I'm flesh and blood, just like you. And it's like, come on, man, like you're delivering the worst fucking villain lines ever. You're not intimidating at all, man. If I was Eric Draven, I'm just gonna cut your shit off. I'm just going to slice your head off, man. I'm going to walk out of the opera house with it in my hand and probably go bowling with it just to add insult to injury. Just for good measure, man. It's a shitty showdown. And then at some point, I almost called the motherfucker Top Dollar. Let me not disrespect Michael Wincott like that. But at some point, Danny Houston tries to stab him. Eric grabs the knife, and Danny Houston does get to puncture his skin. And he's like, you don't feel any of it, do you? You don't feel any pain. And he's like, I feel all of it. Because that's one of the things that Kronos told him in like the little purgatory warehouse with all the crows. He was like, listen, you're not going to be able to die, but you're going to feel every bit of pain that's inflicted on you throughout the course of this movie, basically, is what he said. But he's like, I feel all of it. And then Danny Houston grabs him and he whispers in his ear, he's like, whatever the fuck that, Tina Turner was saying in that biopic. Or you might go as far as to say, what was Stan saying in It Chapter 1 when they were kids in the sewer? He's like, oh, my honor, do my best, do my duty, God of my country. He's yelling in his ear and whispering in his ear, and then Eric Draven's eyes turn white, and Danny Houston is now trying to steal his fucking crow powers. But then they both end up in purgatory, and we get super supernatural with it, where, Eric tells Danny Houston, Danny Houston's like, where are we? Where am I? And he's like, this is the last place you'll ever be. And he knocks him into the pond of no return with supernatural skeletons that are going to rip his ass apart and turn him into, like a skeletal feast. Like, it's stupid. It's dumb. That being said, the supernatural elements of this movie, The Crow has always been a supernatural property. We're not going to sit up here and act like this shit has never been supernatural. For God's sakes, the main character, the protagonist of the first movie came back to life. He came back to life. And he saw his fucking girlfriend at the grave at the end of the movie. It's supernatural. All of them have been supernatural. But this shit, I said it in my TikTok review. I said, this is the most supernatural we've ever gone as far as I've seen. Now, I do have to watch the rest of Stairway to Heaven TV episodes. But this is the most supernatural I've seen. And the more supernatural we got in the movie, the dumber it got. The more I'm just not fucking buying it, man. It's just dumb. Danny Houston is a terrible villain. One of the things, and now I've been praising this shit up and down for almost an hour, people. The shit I'm about to get into that I don't like. Danny Houston is a trash villain. Stop casting this dude as a main villain of y'all movies. He's trash. He's garbage. It's terrible. I don't like him as a villain in this movie. He's not effective. He strolls up on, Shelley Webster's mother, and he whispers in her ear, and she throws herself off a goddamn balcony, man. He's garbage. He doesn't lift a finger, man. He's got all his goons to do his dirty work for him. At least with Michael Wincott in the original movie. Michael Wincott was a very interesting villain, man. He talks interesting. His lines are written pretty interesting, in my opinion. And he's got an interesting look to him, man. And his voice, like I said, man, Michael Wincott could read scary stories to kids all around the United States, man, and I would buy it. I would listen to it my damn self as an adult. But Danny Houston, he's ass as a villain. The rest of the villains are forgettable. They're disposable, and one could argue and say, well, when he killed, in the original, when he killed Top Dollar's villains, those were all disposable goons. True. But these are just motherfuckers in suits at the opera house that are just letting off countless rounds that are going to get killed. Other than that, the other villains that killed Eric and Shelley, they're forgettable. You don't remember their names. You don't remember how they look. There's one guy, I only remember how he looks because his eye is fucked up. And he's got an accent. And that was the guy Eric killed in the car. And when he let the round off and shot him through the back seat, Eric's ears popped, and I love that scene, man, because it humanized Eric Draven in that moment, even though it was a supernatural element going on about him. But the villains are trash. The shit that the time we spent with Eric and Shelley throughout the course of like 35-45 minutes was trash. I just don't care. One of my biggest problems with the movie was that I wasn't emotionally invested in it. And I do feel like I wish there was more. I was just telling somebody on TikTok this shit too, and I wish I remembered her name, and I wish I could shout you out. But hopefully you listen to this and you know exactly the conversation we were just having today, prior to me recording this episode. She said that we both agreed that the opera house sequence was crazy. It was amazing, but I do feel like like as far as action, I set my expectations a little higher. I thought that we were going to get some crazy action sequences in this movie. And it's not that we had a bunch of crazy action sequences in any of the movies prior or even the TV show, but I just thought that we would set our sights a little higher as far as super memorable sequences. The car sequence is cool. The opera house sequence is cool. The apartment sequence is definitely cool. Before and after he becomes the Crow, and he's killing those guys or fighting off those guys in Chance's apartment. Man, I like that sequence a lot. But I kind of take back what I said as far as when I was done my spoiler review. I said, if we never got another Crow movie for another couple decades, I would kind of be okay. I take that back now. Now that I'm doing this review, I take that back because I feel like I'm due for one more go round with a director. I'm not gonna say a better director because I think Rupert Sanders definitely set out to make this his own, whether that was for better or worse. But I do feel like fans that wanted what I wanted from this movie, I feel like we do deserve I'm not gonna say a better director, but a director that is a lot more focused on memorable, crazy action sequences throughout. That doesn't have to be all that it is. I definitely want a story. I definitely want characters. I definitely want an antagonist as a main villain. I definitely want memorable side villains. You know what I'm saying? I want everything that a Crow movie should be at its core. But I do feel like even in a movie like City of Angels, there were better sequences put together, man. And I'm not sure exactly if I said that this was better than City of Angels in my Intoxic commentary for City of Angels, but I don't think it is, man. Violence wise, sure. There's a bigger budget. I assume there's a bigger budget, and it's a different time frame that they did this. They probably had different references to use as far as the violence and the fight sequences and things like that and the action sequences as a whole. But I do feel like where I set the bar for the Crow City of Angels, I feel like I set that bar for good reason because that movie held up a hell of a lot better than I thought it would a couple days ago. And this movie, like for me, I did give it a 7 out of 10. I gave it the same thing I gave City of Angels. Do I feel like this movie will age gracefully as time goes on? I certainly hope so because I stand on 10 toes down on what I said, y'all. I feel like this movie does not deserve all the hate that it's getting. I feel like there's a lot of motherfuckers that are like conditioned to look, man. Like I said, this movie had a bullseye on its back like City of Angels before it even came out. Before it had a director, before it had Skarsgård, before it had Danny Houston, before it had FKA Twigs in the movie, all these actors and actresses and people that were involved in the movie, long before this shit came out, people already hated it. So much like the sequel back in the 90s, nobody gave this shit a fair chance. So I'm hoping that this movie does age well. I like in my heart, I don't know if it will, but I'm just staying hopeful. The same way I was staying hopeful when I saw that trailer and I was like, all right, man, like this is my concern, that's my concern, and this, that, and other. Like I'm going to stay hopeful that people will turn around to this movie in like a couple years or maybe in a year or two. I don't know, maybe after a couple watches and be like, yo, I was wrong about this movie, man, because I feel like everything that I've said about this movie, I felt like that the one time I saw it. I don't. There may be some things that change later on down the line, but for the most part, I'm standing 10 toes down on everything that I said. The performances, they weren't. I was nowhere near as invested in these performances as I should have been, and I still stick with the fact that Bill Skarsgård is the best actor in this movie. That's not to say Danny Houston is not a good actor. He's a great actor. I'm just tired of seeing him play the same motherfucker in every movie. But the performances aren't terrible, man. But I just feel like as far as getting us invested and making like packing that punch that's gonna knock your motherfucker. Like, do y'all remember in I think it was like like Avengers Infinity War or Endgame, where that chick Tilda Swinton, when she knocked, you know, Bruce Banner's spirit out of his body. Like, I wanted this movie to do that. And I'm still waiting for a Crow movie to do that, man. And people wonder why I was excited to see Jason Momoa and why I was excited to give Luke Evans a chance. You know what I'm saying? Well, I wasn't, at first I wasn't a fan of Luke Evans until somebody was like, yo, watch No One Lives. And then you'll see why he would have been amazing as the Crow. I wasn't going to give Luke Evans a chance until after it was already said and done that he wasn't on board for it anymore. But like I've been on board with this with this nightmare of development hell with this franchise for for a long time, man. And I feel like I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on this franchise, man. I just did a fucking trailer reaction for Hellboy, The Crooked Man, trailer reaction number 2 to be exact. And one of the things I was saying, speaking of Hellboy, The Crooked Man, I was saying that, we're getting the Toxic Avenger, we're getting Hellboy, we're getting The Crow. All these reboots are coming out. Which one is going to stand the test of time? And the jury's still out on that, man, because we haven't gotten a full trailer for Toxic Avenger, and we've gotten 2 trailers that are pretty fucking lackluster for Hellboy, Crooked Man. So The Crow, in my eyes, as far as the reboots that I was looking forward to, The Crow's winning. Still winning, man. But does it put the wrong things right, people? I wouldn't say so. Because I feel like there's still a lot of loopholes we got to get through with this franchise, man. There's still a lot of things we got to get right. There's a certain director out there. I don't know who it is. I can't, normally I would just theorize and geek out and be like, yo, man, yeah, we need to get this person to direct it and this person to write it and this person to play the Crow. Now, I did say in City of Angels commentary, I was like, yo, if they ever do a female version of the Crow, which I feel like is long overdue, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Fuck out of here. I don't want anybody else but Mary Elizabeth Winstead to play the Crow in a gender swap version. And fuck out of here, because a gender swap version was actually a part of one of those comics. I don't know. So y'all can fact check that shit if y'all want to. But I don't know who out there is equipped to deal with this, man. It makes me think of what Corinne Hardy was going to do with it. When Jason Momoa was attached, we did see some audition footage for Jason Momoa's version, man. But I 7 out of 10, man. I enjoyed parts of this movie, man, but I just feel like it wasn't as memorable. It wasn't as impactful as it should have and could have and would have been. But it's so many things about this movie and the ending. The ending was like, all right, when he made a deal with Kronos and was like, all right, man, my life for hers, I'm gonna put the wrong things right. And when he killed everybody, he sees Shelly in purgatory and she's like, wait, hold up, man, like, this ain't what we agreed on. We both going back, or I'm staying here with you. And he's like, nah, baby, like, I'm gonna love you forever. Like, you gonna go back to the land of the living. I'm gonna stick around here in this dirty ass broken down warehouse with these crows and Kronos, man. Me and Kronos gonna hang out, have a couple beers and shit, and then that's gonna be what it's gonna be. And then when they sealed the deal, she coughed. She was coughing and she was being resuscitated by the ambulance, and Eric was dead next to her in the apartment that they were murdered in. So it's like, did the people that murdered them disappear? Did they walk away and they still existed? Like, the ending I was a tad bit confused on. But I feel like in a movie where a crow will come back to put the wrong things right and some supernatural shit happens, I feel like if I question that, then I'm gonna have to question everything from start to finish in the movie. So I just kind of let it slide, and I'll just chalk it up as a plot hole, man. I'll chalk it up to the game. But yeah, man, it was a 7 out of 10 for me. I feel like the original is always going to be what it's going to be. I will never unfairly stack some shit up to that film because I know what it means to me. But I'm not one of those realistic fans of the original where it's like, I don't give a fuck what you do. I don't want to see the original. I don't want to see a reboot or a remake or like, nah, man, I'm open to whatever. I'm a remake bull, man. Like, I've seen. Listen, man, y'all already know. We've been through the worst of the prequels, the requels, the sequels, the remakes, the reboots. I've seen it all, man, and it's still a lot more left to go. So I'm not going to just cancel out the idea of somebody trying to do another Crow movie. Man, I made it through, like, City of Angels was good. Don't get me wrong. Like, going back and looking at it, it was great. But I made it through fucking Salvation, and I made it. If I made it through Wicked Prayer, then yeah, cut me some goddamn slack. You understand? I made it through Edward Furlong hanging by his neck next to Emmanuelle Chriqui, who looks great in every movie she's in, even when she's being beheaded in Wrong Turn. You know, hanging next to fucking David Boreanaz and Tara Reid eating deviled eggs. And Dennis Hopper being a Mac Daddy gangster priest that's going to marry them in a demonic prayer where Macy Gray is present. Fuck y'all talking about, man. We've seen worse. You know, we've seen worse. And I'm saying this shit to all the people that's just unjustly hating on this movie, man. Y'all have seen worse in the sequels. Don't shit on this one just because it's popular to do. You know, I feel like everybody wants to run with the flock and be like, yeah, man, I'm going to hate this movie right away. Like, shut the fuck up and form your opinion on your own, man. Like seriously, like, get off of RottenTomatoes.com. Get off of those, you know, just stop. And form an opinion for your own, man. That's all I ask. That's all I do on here. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's people whose podcasts I love to watch. Like I said, I watch it like it's regular TV, basic cable, super cable, whatever the case may be. And I disagreed with them, some of them, throughout the entire review. Not the entire review, but through like 80% of their review. I'm just like, nope. You're wrong. Oh, yeah, I agree with that, but no, you're wrong for the rest of it. But I still know how to form my own opinion. So I would say to anybody that hasn't seen this, because I'm definitely about to wrap this up, I would say experience this for yourself. If you've been curious about it, if you have been on the fence about it, if you caved into it after hating it, and you saw the trailer and was like, well, maybe there's one thing or two I want to watch, or maybe there's one thing or two in these pictures that I want to see play out, just watch it. Experience it for yourself. Judge it for yourself. Do a review. Shit, send the review here. Tag me in the review, man. I'll watch it. I'll repost it. I want to know what everybody's thoughts are going to be on this movie, man. This is going to be one of the most... This shit's going to hold up the reputation of something like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. For better or worse, it's going to be talked about forever, people. But did it put the wrong things right? I feel like that's subjective. But, people, y'all already know where to go, man. And if y'all don't, y'all can follow the podcast on Spotify and wherever else y'all get y'all podcasts. Shout out to Spotify for podcasters. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Romero Tudor. Shout out to the Facebook movie group, The Cinemaniacs. And last but certainly not least, shout out to the Tudor reviewers, the listeners, the lovers, the supporters out there. I'll definitely be uploading this tonight at some point. Let me get some hydration. Let me get some water. Let me get my electrolytes right. And put something on in the background. Maybe I'll put on the Crow Wicked Prayer in the background. But no, I ain't that desperate right now for some background noise, even when I'm doing whatever the fuck I'm doing. But people, shit, I almost choked on my own spit now. Definitely check out, it's Monday right now, as far as right now. But make sure y'all check out tomorrow, RNZ Live, man. Me and Zuko are going to be doing our... Shit, what the fuck is our topic tomorrow? Oh, shit, we're going to be reviewing The Crow. You see how it comes full... People, I make it come full circle on the Tudor Reviews podcast, man. We're going to be doing like a kind of... depending on how long it takes, depending on what type of views and opinions Zuko has on this movie, we're going to be doing our review, spoiler review, for anybody that's tuning into the stream, of The Crow, of this movie. And we're going to see how we feel, how we differentiate on the movie. And then after that, we're going to be doing our top 5 summer movies just to close out the summer season, man. Y'all know school started. Actually, school started today, man. Saw my little ones off for their first day of school, man. I was like kind of emotional. Shout out to all the parents out there that went to see their kids off for school today. Even though, like, do y'all remember back in the day when we used to start school in September? Because this shit is insane, man. Like the 26th. I'm just like, all right, man, come on. Y'all trying to take the summer away from these kids little by little. And then y'all talking about some, at least out here, they talking about some, we're going to have all year round classes. No, you're not. Because unless these kids got to go to summer school, nobody's going for that shit. Cut it out, man. Y'all know that song, School's Out for Summer, that they played for Scream? Speaking of School's Out, it ain't going to be too much out because September's rolling around, people, and we are definitely going to get back into our back to school commentary, back to school theme commentary, man. It's some good ones in there, man. I'm trying to remember, did I put Dead Poets Society on my back to school list? I can't remember, but that's one that I've been like definitely looking at clips of on like Instagram and shit like that. Recipe shout out to Robin Williams. I definitely, yo, if I didn't put Dead Poet Society on my back to school commentary list, I should probably do that, right? Because that old Captain My Captain scene, like that's been recreated so many times, even on Family Guy. But I don't know. We'll see, people. Y'all already know. Love and support y'all show me. I show it back to y'all tenfold and then some. So with that being said, people, yours truly, Romero Tutor. Another episode of Tutor Reviews in the can. I'll check y'all on the next one.